Thank you, Haripriya. Good morning, everyone present here. It gives me great pleasure to welcome you all to this webinar on modern farming technologies and the need for it, hosted by AABN. This is the 117th webinar organized by AABN. I take this opportunity to express my deep appreciation to you all. I take this opportunity to express my deep appreciation to you all for honoring us by being here. It's gratifying to note that the agenda of today's webinar covers a wide range of future relevant topics, and we have in our midst our distinguished speaker to share his experience in specific area of specialty. I extend a very warm welcome to Mr. Sriram Gopal for coming here and willing to impart his expertise to our community. Welcome to you all for responding to our call and being here. Have you ever wondered about that eureka moment when mankind realized that it could grow its own food and sustain life? For a large part of history, we were hunter-gatherers who led to nomadic lifestyle, moving from one place to another, eating whatever nature provided until that moment in time when someone decided to plant a seed. Humanity witnessed the first instance of cultivation and food production around 12,000 years ago. In the centuries that followed, change was slow, and it was not until the Industrial Revolution during the 18th and 19th centuries that we began to look out at food production more scientifically. The Green Revolution began in the 1960s with widespread mechanization that allowed crops to be cultivated with fewer workers. Since then, mankind has made enormous leaps of progress, and agriculture has kept pace. The future of agriculture technology is right around the corner. We have reached an interesting stage of our food story, and the need for the use of technology in agriculture is now more real than ever. What makes this webinar more pertinent is the fact that we are facing a food production crisis like never before. Technology is not just making the world smaller metaphorically, it is shrinking physically too. The decrease in the availability of agricultural land that can feed the 10 billion people expected to populate the world by 2050 is a definite reason to sit up and take note. Our guest speaker today, Mr. Sriram Gopal, will discuss on the emergence and impact of technology in agriculture with the aim of improving sustainability and finding more efficient ways to cultivate the limited land that we have at our disposal. I have the pleasant duty of welcoming and introducing Mr. Sriram Gopal at Modern Farming Technologies and the Need for It, an interactive business networking session. Sriram Gopal is an electronics and systems engineer with degree in business and leadership from Stanford and IIMBA. He has over a decade of experience in controlled environment agriculture across India and Southeast Asia. He was the winner of the L'Oreal Sustainability Prize in 2019. His company has executed over 100 commercial CA projects, and his vision is to build the world's largest network of autonomous nano farms. An eternal realist, he has over 10 plus years experience in building lean startups, bootstrapping and accelerating growth. He strongly believes that clean food, water, and the earth's resources must be accessible to all. At Future Farms, he's involved in co-creating inclusive and sustainable technology solutions in the clean food value chain. He envisions the farms of the future to be autonomous and data-driven, and believes that we are moving closer to singularity with the AI in agriculture. In his previous stint, he founded Cinnamon Think Labs, a product development company specializing in open source technologies that has built over 400 internet products and mobile apps to date. Founded MeterDesk, an energy dashboard audit, billing and management software designed for commercial facilities and large-scale industrial buildings. Some of his key achievements included bootstrapped Future Farm, an agtech startup from 2-member team to a 60-member team with revenue in excess of $1 million USD. Speaker and panelist at Stanford University's India Economic Policy Reform Program 2018, TEDx speaker, recognized by the Mixing Bowl and Forbes as a key player in the indoor agriculture land space 2019, recognized as the top 100 global startups of 2019 at Slingshot, Singapore. His interest also includes blue ocean strategies, behavioral psychology, and game theory. He enjoys gardening, playing poker, new learning experiences, and minimalism. crafting strategies and building roadmaps for implementing greenfield technologies, identifying key resources and building high-performance teams, product market fit at scale, relationship management are some of his specialties. With a guest speaker with distinguished experience, I'm not going to extend my speech because I would like him to take over. Hope you have an engaging day that is beneficial for the future of your career and the industry at large. Once again, a very warm welcome to you, Mr. Sriram, and over to you. Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Gopi, thank you so much for that wonderful and expansive introduction. So like I said, wanted to start off today's session with, a big thank you to you for the continuous follow-ups and making sure that, today actually happened. So I'm very thankful and very honored to be here, sir. And I think I must pass on the wonderful work that you're doing to your fellow teammates as well before I start. So having said that, again, thank you. And good morning, everyone. I'm really honored and happy to be here. I've got over 10 years of experience in the high-tech farming and controlled environment agriculture space. And I'm broadly here, not sure whether to impart knowledge, but definitely to share my journey. In all these 10 years, the things I've observed about the Indian agricultural ecosystem and also globally, because I don't think food is restricted by any boundaries. And I have a very, very broad philosophy discuss over the course, maybe during the Q&A sessions. So I want to start off today with, because whenever we talk about high-tech farming or modern farming and all of that, right? So the first question one should ask is why? Okay, because what's wrong with what we're doing currently? Because if you don't understand that, firstly, if you don't know if there is a problem, and then what is the gravity of that problem, then we will never understand or appreciate any efforts, being made to solve this problem. So let me start off by just giving you a very quick snapshot on, what is currently happening, right? So we all know that land itself is a mere 29% of the earth, right? So rest of the earth is covered by ocean. So in that finite piece of land, we have very, very limited resources, right? Whether it's fresh water or agricultural land, we kind of need to learn to coexist. But if you notice what is happening, there has been an exponential rise in the human population. The life expectancy of humans are getting better and better due to the intervention of medicine, science, and it's a great thing. At the same time, we are having like infant mortality has been, reducing year on year. So while this is a great thing for people in general, the overall, stats sometimes can be quite disturbing, right? Like, because it is said that by 2050, we are going to have almost 10 billion people on Earth from the current 7 billion. And they say that if we are 10 billion, that means we are actually 4 times more than what the Earth intended for. So we are 4x, or we are excess by 3 times. Now, the current food system, we need to improve it by almost 70% with the finite land to be in a position to feed the new, 3 billion people that would be added in the next few years. Now, that is not the, disturbing fact, right? So it is something that we think we can manage. But look at it this way. If land is finite, and if most 60% of the people are moving to urban areas and our cities are expanding, and they're going to be 10 times bigger in the next, 10 to 15 years, what land is all of this cityscape and the developmental projects and the housing and the new population going to replace? The only place where they can replace should have water, should have, a clean environment, and should be conducive to human habitat, which is nothing but our farmlands. So they say that on a given day, almost 2,000 farmers actually quit. 60% of the farmers next generation don't want to get into farming. And we are losing almost 2 feet of water table every single year. So while on one side, we have this huge demand for food and it is soaring. And it's not like we have addressed this efficiently today. In fact, before the start of this session, we were just having a chat, I think with Mr. Vishwanath and Mr. Gopi, saying that, on one side, 30% of the food we produce is wasted. And on the other side, there are people literally starving. They're not able to have one meal a day. And I think most of our audience are from India. The disturbing fact, at least it disturbed me a lot, is that apparently 25% of the world's hungry people, according to WHO, are actually from India. Our country hosts 25% of the world's hungry people. That's 500 million people, according to WHO's guideline, which means people who can't afford one meal a day. So it is very clear that our current system is not serving us efficiently today and certainly not going to be serving us any better in the future with all of this. And whatever stats I'm reading out, right, like by 2050, 10 billion, we may think, okay, fine, it's a global issue. So why should I keenly, look at it? It is actually a little more serious than we think, especially for a country like India. Serving us any better in the future with all of this. I think whatever stats I'm reading out, right, like by 2050, 10 billion, we may think. Yeah, thank you. If you take India, we are a young country. So which means 60% of our population are people in the range of 20 to 40. Which sadly also means we're going to be making more babies than anybody else in the next few years or the next decade to come, right? Which means the rate at which India's population is going to grow is going to be much higher when compared to the global average. While it's great for economy, workforce, and all of this stuff, look at the food pressure, water pressure, and the land pressure it's going to put on our country. So if we don't really plan our resources, if we don't really have a foresight and work backward, we are going to be in serious trouble. Today we are looking at countries outside for our oil, for different commodities. Very soon, we will be a nation that will be looking to, borrow food and probably water. And again, water, I cannot stress enough the importance of water and the gross negligence India has on just water utilization. I mean, let me give you an example, right? We keep taking pride in saying that we are the rice bowl, we are the capital of the world, we are the sugar bowl of the world. But what we don't actually realize is for a kilo of milk, we need 5,000 liters of water. For a kg of cotton, we need 10,000 liters of water. And the irony is, today, when you do the business math, so if you look at it from a slightly, macro perspective and in a more abstract view, we are in the business of shipping the highest amount of water from one country to the other. Every kg of cotton you are exporting, you're actually moving millions of tons of water, which that country that is taking the cotton is not paying. And the worst part is, it is not even factored. It is not even factored in the cost. Even 1 paise per liter is not being, and that is why I say, agriculture is a very strange industry because we don't classify it as business. We don't classify it as social. Because we want every farmer to be an entrepreneur, yet there is no price on that entrepreneur. If you understand what I'm saying, the farmer, when he's growing, he doesn't put a salary for himself. He acts like an entrepreneur. And so the raw material, like critical raw material, like water, his time and his effort are not even factored in the cost of the product. So like I was saying, it's a multi-dimensional problem, a big one and one of the oldest ones. And I think technology is I'm not saying it is the only solution, but I'm saying it is a great solution for us to try and address these issues. See, why I thought I should harp on the problem a little more is simply because one needs to understand this clearly, right? Like how bad it is. And it's not like, the global warming and all the other things where people are adequately making you realize it, right? Wherever you go, someone's talking about climate change, global warming, and all of that. But no one's really talking about you're soon going to run out of food in your supermarket. I mean, look at UK. In the last 1 month, they don't have fresh vegetables in their supermarket because of the Brexit and all the different policies that they made. They got kind of isolated, and they literally did not have, one of the richest economies in the world does not have food to feed the people. They have money, but they don't have the vegetables. And the thing is, vegetables are one such a thing. And the 10 years of agriculture has only taught me this, right? You may want it urgently, but nothing happens urgently there. If you want to sow a seed, you got to wait for the harvest, right? Doesn't matter how much money you have, what the level of urgency you are, right? Because a plant is a living organism and it takes its own sweet time to grow. And there's nothing much we can do about it except to accept. Now, coming back to the big challenges. So our ecosystem clearly is quite inefficient currently. We are doing a lot of activities to try and bridge this gap. But broadly, if I have to highlight these things, right? So there is a growing, trust deficit between the consumer and the farmer. There's excess fertilizer. There is long, lengthy, inefficient, multiple middlemen, heavy supply chains. There is, very low land holding for the farmer. The transparency is not there. The food is not grown really for flavor and nutrition rather than just stability and shelf life. So there is a genuine issue of food security. At least in India, we are a little lucky. But if you look at countries like Singapore, Saudi Arabia, Middle East, they are importers of 90% of their food. So, and the pandemic really brought these big, and I'm talking about almost first world countries, right? Like the GDP is so much, they have so much excess cash, but they realize that money can only do so much. If they don't develop their own self-sustainable food supply, nothing can upset their governments or economies more than this. So everyone's feeling the heat of this, a problem. Now, every problem is also an opportunity, right? So the message to a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of people who are seeking opportunities in agri, this is a great time to be in agriculture as an industry as well, because the industry itself is a 15,000 billion global market. And the industry spans from seed inputs all the way to produce to value-added services. So this is a small snapshot of the agri value chain, right? So you have input companies, you have farmers, you have processing companies, you have food companies, you have retailers, you have, and of course, end consumers. Like a lot of people ask me saying, oh, McDonald's is like a burger company. Someone said McDonald's is a real estate company. But I humbly disagree, right? A McDonald's is a farm company because they are one of the largest consumers of apple in the world. They are the largest consumers of tomato in the world. Now, how many people know this? I don't know. For every burger they are making, right? They need a lettuce, they need a tomato, they need a potato. And just imagine McDonald's has 40,000 outlets across the globe. Their total, food consumption constitutes about 1.2% of the global food consumption. So while we look at these businesses differently, right, the fundamentals of most of this, rises from agriculture. So the agriculture kind of is a foundation. And in India, we don't even have to think. 67% of our people are thriving on agri and agri-related economies. So key drivers for controlled environment agriculture. Now, before I start here, I'm just saying, now that we know what kind of a problem this is, what technology should be used, right? And why this technology is relevant for what we're trying to do. So the factors that we are really trying to address are, one, the changing climate or the climate adversities and uncertainties, right? The second one is water. Third one is quality of produce. And fourth one is how environmentally conscious we are while we are trying to solve this great food problem. So these are broadly the kind of things we need to address. And in order to address them, we, at least, my company, myself, and a lot of people like me believe that controlled environment agriculture can be a game changer and can actually address this problem in a significant way. It not sure if it will solve the problem 100%, but definitely it will improve things significantly if a lot of and controlled environment agriculture simply means we measure and monitor everything that we actually give or take. That's a very broader philosophical, because what you can't measure, you cannot monitor, and what you can't monitor, you cannot correct. As simple as that. So controlled environment agriculture broadly is, you can break it down into three fundamental blocks. And it's applicable across all farming activities, whether it's animal husbandry, mushroom, horticulture, floriculture, any living organism. You need to take care of the microclimate. So the ambience at which they are thriving, right? Everybody requires, like for us, we need a certain temperature, we need a certain humidity, we need the amount of air. Similarly, plants and animals have their own requirement. So one, you have to manage the microclimate. Two, you need to manage the nutrition of so water and food, right? So the nutrition of these living organisms. And the third one, you need to manage, or you need to follow a standard operating procedure. If for humans, we have a routine. We sleep in the night, wake up in the morning, work for a few hours, have a social time, and then go back to sleep. Similarly, plants will have a routine. Each crop will have a different routine. Each animal will have a different routine. So for us, it is important to understand, what is the life cycle of that particular crop or animal or, human, and make sure that those SOPs or standard operating procedures are in place. So this is the building block of controlled environment agriculture. We need to manage climate, nutrition, and routine. So having said that, what does controlled environment agriculture address? And today I wanted to kind of deep dive into a couple of topics. So while we're talking about three different parts, my company's experience in the last 10 years has been predominantly in the high-tech farming space, especially in the hydroponics, vertical farming, data farming area. And while today we also do a lot of climate, that may be too much of a topic to go into on a single day. So I will restrict myself to a fascinating topic called hydroponics and hydroponic farming and the different types of hydroponic farming, and also how we digitally measure and monitor all the different variants. So this will help you understand this space a little better. So again, my company's philosophy, this is very, very important for us. It is, we believe that food itself and clean food, by mere definition, not all food is clean. That's what I think, right? So food that is safe for you in the short term and long term can be considered as clean food. And clean food is not a privilege. It has to be a fundamental right. And this topic, I just want to, also send like a personal thought, right? Maybe a little politically incorrect, but a lot of us, as people, we divide ourselves into convenient boxes. We say, oh, I'm in India, I don't need to worry about what happens in Somalia, or I'm a US citizen, I don't need to care about what's happening in India, or all of this. But I always believe that human beings have been living on Earth for like thousands of years, right? If all of us are living on Earth at the same time, we're all somehow connected, because we are sharing the same timeline on Earth with each other. And in this same timeline, if there is a 3-year-old child somewhere in Syria crying for food, the 3-year-old child, mind you, doesn't understand passports, doesn't understand its refugee status or war or politics or regime change or religion or whatever. And if you are sharing the planet with that 3-year-old child who doesn't understand any of this, because all of this is man-made, right? Your countries, boundaries, whatever, you are also collectively responsible for that. We always look up to say, oh, it's the government's problem, it's a global geopolitical issue, but you are part of that issue. So the least we can do is relate to that, right? So we are still very much responsible for that 3-year-old which is crying for food in some way. And I think as as we need to understand that we're all in it together. So it's not someone else's problem. It is all a collective problem. So this is what drove me to jump into Future Farms in the first place. Like, can I really try and solve a global food problem in whatever way I can? So that's the mission of the company itself. So let me give you a very quick overview of hydroponics technology. Hydroponic, the mere definition is growing plants without soil, in water, and by managing or conditioning the quality of water, we can grow any crop. So basically, you don't need soil to grow plants. A soil is simply an anchorage or a holding medium for plants. Theoretically speaking, if I held a plant in my hand, suspended in water, and I ensured that there is enough dissolved oxygen in the water and the right kind of food in the water, the plant will actually grow. So that's one of the biggest discoveries. And that discovery became a tech, and that tech became a solution. And today, that solution is very, very effective in large parts of the developed world and in some parts of the upcoming economies, and has a significant impact on water and yield. So controlled environment agriculture, like I said, can be broadly divided into two segments, right? So when you say controlled environment, the agri chain itself, if you take agriculture in a single line, 85% of agriculture is open field today, globally, I'm saying. About 14 to 15% of agriculture is in protected or greenhouses. And less than 1% is in indoor vertical farming, fully simulated LED grown crops. One may wonder, why do we need all of these? We will go into that later, but I'm just trying to give you how the landscape looks like, right? So majority of our farmers are still using open field, and in open field, there are again subcategories like rain-fed, drip irrigated, flood irrigated, and so on. So this is how they are dealing with growing the crops today. But broadly, if you come under protected, I want to shift our focus more on the greenhouse and indoor, because we are talking about advanced technologies and what benefits they bring to agriculture. So key advantages of controlled environment agriculture. So by the way, I put some of our projects I've done. I've executed over 100 projects in India. In fact, I had the privilege of setting up the first ever commercial hydroponic farm in the country. This was many years ago. So I'm just sharing some of the work behind, so that you can also visualize what controlled environment agriculture looks like. So this is a project that we did in Delhi for a large corporate. So the controlled environment agriculture, first and foremost, using hydroponics saves 90% water. So this can vary between 80 to 95%, depending on the application. But the single biggest benefit of controlled environment agriculture is we are able to save. So if an open field uses 1 lakh liters of water a day, which is very common in open field agriculture, we end up using only 10% of that, right? So only 10,000 liters of water. And for all those people who say, we need to be very conscious on closing the tap at home, making sure your tank doesn't leak and all of that. I've got the overall residential individual consumption of water, in a country like India adds up only less than 7%. So the biggest elephant in the room is agriculture. One of the largest quantum of water is being utilized in agriculture, and our all domestic consumption put together is less than 6%. So of course we need to close the taps. We need to save the the lines that are dripping and so on. That's not my intention to say don't do that, but I'm just saying, just realize that we are just openly letting so much water go to waste, in multiple formats in the name of inefficient agriculture. So it is a huge factor for us to keep in mind. So of course, one of the benefits of controlled environment agriculture is, one, we eliminate soil. So 80% of the soil-borne diseases are already removed from the equation. And it is inside protected areas possibly with insect nets, which means we mitigate almost 80% of the airborne diseases as well. So we are able to either completely eliminate pesticides in the equation or at least reduce it by 80 to 90% in most cases. So that is one big significant advantage, both from a cost to the farmer and also from quality to the consumer. So again, the kind of land, where to deploy, all of that is a big factor in agriculture, right? Because we need to have the right soil and the right, nutrients, or the soil should be free from heavy metals, toxins, and all of that stuff when you identify a farm. Luckily for us, using hydroponics and controlled environment agriculture, soil has completely become irrelevant, right? I can go to the most hostile soil and I can start cultivating there. I can go to the beach sand technically and start cultivating there, right? As long as I have access to water and access to power, which can be derived by solar and other places, we can very well grow anywhere. And forget about open field land, right? Today, we can even grow in any rooftop where it's a concrete floor. We can actually go ahead and produce food. So cumulatively speaking, because using these modern technologies, I can accommodate more plants inside a 1 acre plot. I can accommodate more cycles inside a 1 acre plot. I am able to produce at least 10 times more. So just to let everyone understand the significance of this, right? So in India, we have a stats saying that 75% of our farmers are smallholder farmers with less than 1 hectare of land. And then the government report says that for a farmer to be viable in agriculture, a minimum land size he requires is 1 hectare or more. So by our own stats, we are saying that in the current format, 70% of the farmers will not make money because they are less than 2 acres. Whereas you need a minimum of 2.5 acres plus to make money. Now, what do we do about it? We certainly cannot go buy more land for the farmers, right? Because of the price effect. But now look at this data. If I can now convert his 1 hectare or 2 acre land into 20 acre land in terms of yield, suddenly the farmer not only earns more, he is now a viable proposition, right? Which means out of the 70%, let's say another 30% of them or 40% of them, we are able to move towards a more viable, sustainable business. So talking about transparency in the food chain, right? And of course, quality, because I often have this comment, right? India is still not caught up with the developed world, right? We're still talking about trying to make every human have 2000 calories. So we always think how much calories per person, whereas the developed world, they are thinking in a completely different metrics, because calorie, anything is a calorie, right? Eating just rice 3 times a day is also calorie. But it's all about getting the micro and macro nutrients. It's like, the common thing. Let me relate to agriculture itself. If I just put nitrogen for plants, the plants will not fruit. The nitrogen is also a nutrient, but the plants will not fruit, right? It requires nitrogen, potassium, phosphorus. Then it requires calcium, magnesium, sulfur for secondary, and then some 16 other micronutrients that needs to go for the plant to have a holistic nutrition. Similarly, for human beings, it's not just the quantum of calorie that goes in, right? It is a mix of all the different micro elements, right? Are you getting selenium? Are you getting zinc? Are you getting iron? Are you getting potassium, magnesium? All of these things. And for us to kind of achieve that, we need to start thinking nutrition per calorie than calorie per person. And this is a fundamental difference, because once you start looking at nutrition per calorie, okay, how many calories did I have today? But how much micronutrients went in there? How much macronutrients went in there? Did I get all the, holistic, nutritious components, in the food that I'm eating? Will change the way we eat or we look at food itself. And it's a big shift. And we're not there yet. So we are still, in the process of, okay, we need to feed people, not, how well are we feeding people? So this is where the quality of food and people's awareness of quality of food and traceability are going to be a big game changer in the coming future. And controlled environment agriculture and hydroponics are great avenues where we can seamlessly extract all the data and make it fully available and transparent across the value chain. So this is a big advantage for hydroponics. Now, of course, a part of capturing the data and making sure that it is visible across the value chain requires a lot of tech enablement. And the beauty of these kind of technologies is that they facilitate, they accommodate a lot of technology and data intervention. So we are able to measure, monitor, deploy different sensors and collate all that information and meaningfully, transfer it upstream. So having said that, now let's just go into a slightly more technical topic, and I'll keep it very broad, right? So I won't go into the details of this. So types of hydroponic technologies. So there are different variants of hydroponics itself. I'll just go one by one and then I'll give you some image references so you understand. There is something called as a nutrient film technique, deep water culture, wick system, flood and drain or ebb and flow system, drip system, which is nothing but your drip irrigation system in substrates. Then there is aeroponic, then there is aquaponic, and then there is a Beto or a Dutch bucket system. So these are all sub-genres. So when you say I am growing in hydroponics, depending on the crop and depending on the location and depending on other few parameters, we always will choose the right tool to actually produce. If I'm a tomato farmer, I will choose something with one particular technology. And if I'm a leafy vegetable farmer, I will choose one particular technology, right? Because each crop supports a certain kind of system. But having said that, the fundamental principle of hydroponics is exactly the same. So basically, what it says is, if you have water which has the right amount of oxygen and the right amount of potential hydrogen or the pH, right, water condition, and the right amount of food which is already dissolved in water, any plant grows. So the rest of the design of these systems are merely to accommodate the physiology of the plant, right? A tomato vine, an indeterminate variety, will go up to 16 feet, 17 feet. So for you to accommodate a system like that, and the root will be like a complete mesh of like a football. So you cannot obviously put a very, very small pot to grow such a big plant. So it is only a practical physiological convenience that we look at different methods. And the fundamental difference is, like in deep water, there'll be a big chunk of water, whereas in NFT, there'll be a thin film of water. But the principle behind it is exactly the same. So this is an illustration of what an NFT system is, right? So it'll be usually like a plastic pipe in which there'll be holes, and then there will be plants where the roots are suspended, and a thin nano film of water will keep continuously running, and it will keep on recirculating so that every time the nutrient is being replenished and dissolved oxygen also is being replenished, and the plants will thrive. In this system, the plants don't grow any tap roots. They will try to grow radial roots. So it'll be like a carpet. So they get a uniform, there'll be more root fibers. So there'll be more absorption of nutrients, and there will be a better, more vigorous growth for the plants. The other important aspect of high-tech farming is that it's basically like logic, right? Like every time you need to walk 10 kilometers to have your meal, you're going to be gaining some energy by eating the meal, but you're losing that energy also by walking 10 kilometers. So you are trying to balance that energy. In these kind of environments, what we try and do is, by bringing the food to the roots, the root itself does not have the need to travel so long and so far in search of food. So what happens is, the plant realizes that it's got literally a buffet around it. The root itself starts growing smaller, and it transfers all that excess energy that it saves by minimizing its root growth, and transferred to the foliar section of the plant. So the health of the plant above the ground, above the surface, will be much more vigorous because the plant is conserving all that energy in not developing its root, because it does not need to. Everything is coming to the plant rather than the plant going after like in conventional soil. This is how a hydroponic farm looks. I've also highlighted some plus and minus of each technology, right? So obviously, with all the plastic and metal in place, it's a highly efficient model. Like in 1 acre, you can get easily about 100 to 150 tons of leafy vegetables in this system. So in terms of earning, if a farmer invests in 1 acre of a system like this, he can generate anywhere between 90 lakhs to 1.5 crores in India, and outside that value. However, to deploy a farm like this, it costs almost 1.5 to 2 CR as well. So you get a 2 to 3 year break even, and the life of the project can be anywhere between 10 to 15 years. So this is just a small snapshot of how an NFT system looks in real. So this is a project that we deployed, I think in Maharashtra. So this is a A-frame NFT system. Again, the principle is nutrient film technique, which is NFT, but this is more conducive to a rooftop where we are trying to optimize space by growing plants in an angle. The disadvantages are, again, like the previous one, it is capex intensive, but there is an additional disadvantage for this, right? This is not suitable for all crops because there is an A-frame structure. You will notice that one half of the plant is in the shadow area, right? In between the two A layers. So that even if you get full sunlight, only partial part of the plant is getting the sunlight. And then because of transpiration, there will be uneven humidity pockets for the plant. So there may be some uneven growth. While the plus side is, because you're going on you are able to stack more channels on a single frame. So you get increase in productivity. But my personal experience, the plant density that you increase, the extra plants that you put and you grow, does not necessarily always mean that you're going to get a better yield. So globally, it is kind of an understood thing now that A-frames are not as efficient as they physically look like, because finally it's plant yield. And when you have a flatbed system, there is uniform sunlight, uniform humidity pocket, and better response, and they get a complete photosynthesis that happen. So yields sometimes are quite surprising that even flatbeds can sometimes excel in spite of being cheaper than A-frames. So the West has gone one step further in the same NFT technology, because for them, for every table that we deploy, we need to keep at least three feet space for people to move around, go and harvest and all of that, right? A greenhouse typically is 4,000 square meter, which is 40,000 square feet. So imagine every channel or every line, I'm keeping a 3 feet by 100 feet gap. So I'm losing 300 square feet of space between every single row, right? It is highly inefficient because if you take a big farm, you're using almost 10 to 15% of your total space only on walkways. So obviously the developed world, where the human labor is exorbitantly high and the land cost is high and the cooling cost is also high, they wanted to optimize it. So they go for technologies like MGS, which stand for moving gutter systems. Here, the cool thing is the plants actually use up the entire space. There is barely any space in the greenhouse for walkway or anything. And the plants actually move. These channels will keep moving forward. So the people who will be in the front will simply harvest the plants and the new plants go right at the back. It's like a queue. So it's fully mechanized. It's highly efficient. Deep water culture. This is a little more primitive. This is the early stages of when hydroponics started. The big reference to this technology is, during the Aztec period. The Aztecs used to have floating rafts on the river. The river will be filled with a lot of, natural fish. And so there'll be a lot of ammonia. So they will keep rice bags, right? They will keep sacks of sand and put rice on it and let them float on these rafts. So the roots will penetrate, go down and soak the water. And that's the fundamental, concept of deep water culture. A lot of water, plants will be suspended, the water will be aerated, and the roots grow directly on water. The advantage of a deep water culture is that the variabilities in water are much minimal. Like any large volume of water, any change takes a longer time to impact, right? So you will not have these sudden spike in your electron conductivity or potential hydrogen, which is your pH levels and things like that. They are more subtle. But of course, the cost of having 1 lakh liters of water, fertigating them, keeping them optimum, and then replacing them is much higher, and you tend to waste a lot of nutrient and water in this principle. So most of the world are looking at more efficient, lesser water usage by using NFTs these days. This is a typical look of a deep water culture system. The plants are actually floating on a material. It could be a pea slide or a thermocol in lower economies, and there will be like a big tank of water below it, and the water is either being recirculated, which is called RDWC, or it is being aerated with blowers and aerators. So the same recirculating, like I was saying, this is the same deep water culture where we keep exchanging the water. Instead of aerating them, there's a very subtle difference. So the cost of this is slightly more higher because you are now using pumps and you are continuously replacing the water every now and then. So this, I think, is not a new concept to India. We've been using it for many years. In fact, there is 100% government subsidy for drip irrigation, except in hydroponic. Again, the objective is for us moving from soil. So we use coconut pith. In the West, they use rock wool or glass wool. And in some places, they use, again, a volcanic byproduct called oasis, which is again a rock extract. But in India, predominantly because of our exposure to coconut husk, and it's a easily available medium, we use a lot of cocoa substrates. And this one looks like this, right? So these are called trough cultivation. In the trough, we fill them with coco peat. There is no contact with soil here. And then we run these drip lines. Now, the difference between the earlier models and this one is that in the earlier models, we don't let the water go to waste. We recapture all the water back into the system, recondition them, and supply to the plants. Here, we measure accurately how much water the plant needs and release only that much water. This is not a closed loop system. The water doesn't come back to the unit. So this is another picture of how coco peat based systems can be deployed in a greenhouse. Again, you can see some young tomato plants and the fully grown ones using tomato systems. So this is a hydroponic vertical system. Again, plants, they say grow towards the sun. Actually, plant use the gravity more than the sun. This is again a broad misconception, right? So the plant is engineered to use both. It's not just the light, it is which we call as phototropic. It is also the gravity. So the plant will always tend to use gravity and light to position itself. So in this case, they optimize the space by growing plants almost on channels, perpendicular or parallel to the soil, right? The plant faces parallel. The density of the plants can greatly increase because you can take advantage of the vertical height in this system. This is an actual picture of a vertical farm under the sun, which is grown using these kind of, this is commonly known as zip grow towers. And one of the largest companies globally called Plenty, they use this kind of cultivation. Wick system, very simple, very primitive, works like our oil lamp. There is a wick that is moving from the substrate to the water. It's a passive system. It uses the capillary action to pull the water and facilitate the plants. So you can see a typical bottom feed system that can grow plants. The advantage of this system is it does not require too much electricity, works on gravity, and it is predominantly passive. So you don't need to proactively monitor the systems. This is a flood and drain system, more effective for broadly nurseries. So we have the trays that is shown there. You pile up a large number of saplings, and you can water them by just flooding the table from the bottom for maybe 2 or 3 inches for like 5-10 minutes. And then you immediately pull the water down by opening either a venturi or a valve. What happens is when the water drains out fast, it tends to pull the oxygen because it creates a suction force and it creates a vacuum at the bottom of the pots. So that vacuum will in turn start pulling the air from the atmosphere into the pots. So the root zone will get a much higher aeration level, which is always good for the plant development. Dutch bucket is a sub-variant of this. Again, it uses a siphon at the end of the bucket. Water is being poured, and at a certain level, the siphon will activate, again create a vacuum, and more aeration goes to the plant. This is how a Dutch bucket system will look like. It is used predominantly in Europe and some of the Middle East countries. This is a great tool for urban farming, where you don't want to put too much light on the system. You don't want to have too much substrate. This is one good system, and it also looks nice and it's easy to maintain. However, there is an additional cost to the system when compared to your traditional grow bags and so on. Aeroponics, another fascinating technology, because in hydroponics, you spend 90%, I mean, you save 90% of the water. In aeroponics, you can go up to 95, 96% of water, because a thin mist is just sprayed onto the roots in a nanoparticle format. And they say because of the nanoparticle and the bombardment, the absorption of the nutrients and the oxygen for the root is much higher. So the performance tends to be much higher. However, there's an exceptionally high cost of setup and a high cost of maintenance for this setup. This is a very common setup, especially to produce high quality pathogen-free spuds in potato and other tuber crops. So they make the seed material or planting material in very sterile environments using these kind of technology. The picture you're seeing, those are all potato spuds there being grown. So they take this and they analyze them, and then they supply to the farmers for potato production and so on. Aquaponics, again, a very interesting subgenre of hydroponics. This is a symbiotic equation between plant and fish. So, and it's actually a very fascinating concept as well. So what the fish do, or any human or any animal, right? When we consume food, we process them and then we give them out as, predominantly amino acids or ammonia. So this ammonia, there is a natural set of bacteria in the atmosphere, right? So broadly, the common ones that we know are like Nitrobacter, Nitrous amonis. These bacteria colonize in different places, and they have the tendency to convert ammonia to nitrogen. So when they convert this to nitrogen, the nitrogen actually goes to the plants as an input. So on one level, excess ammonia can kill the fish. And on the other level, the plant requires nitrogen. So when you marry these two, it's a very interesting combination, right? The fish will eat the feed, convert ammonia. The bacteria will convert the ammonia to nitrogen. And then the nitrogen is continuously been taken by the plants. So they are a self-regulating mechanism where the farmer can actually have like a double whammy, right? He can grow the fish and the crop, and he has a dual crop while he's decreasing any input or fertilizer cost. He's only feeding the fish. Everything else comes free. This is a theoretical explanation, but if you go into practical stuff, you should understand that only ammonia is converted to nitrogen. The plants, of course, require, for commercial production, they require chelated iron, all the other micro, macro nutrients as well. But in principle, this works for a home garden, an urban farm, or a kitchen garden. If you're growing fish, you can have crops as well. This, this is cutting edge. This is indoor vertical farming, where we are saying, why do we need the sun? What if there was no sun? Can I grow a complete farm inside a building or a basement car park, or inside an IT company or whatnot, right? It is technically possible. You can simulate the entire sun, because sun is nothing but a source of light, and light is nothing but photons. So if you can actually generate photons in the right intensity, then you can actually replace the sun and grow plants anywhere. So indoor vertical farm is very popular. And again, just to let you know, in terms of the light spectrum itself, unlike human beings, plants do not require the complete spectrum. They only require certain frequencies, right? Especially the 400 to 600, and I mean 400 to 440, and 600 to 660. So that is the red and the blue spectrum. That is why you will see some of these pictures where you get a purple color in indoor farms. That is because they are primarily using the blue and the red. They eliminate all the green, yellow, and everything in between. So the full spectrum is white in color. They only isolate these two spectrums. So there is wattage efficiency. So you're spending much lesser on electricity and giving exactly what the plant needs. So this is one of the vertical farming system that we deployed in Chennai. As you can see, it is inside a mall, inside a shopping complex. And we are growing or we are showcasing plants like lettuce and strawberry and some herbs in that system. So this system can be placed absolutely anywhere. One may ask, why do we need stuff like this? Let me get some real-time use cases, right? In countries or in places where there's a food desert. Let's just assume Leh Ladakh, right? Right now, 50,000 soldiers are being located in Leh Ladakh. Now, how do you think their food goes? Considering the adverse terrain and the road transport, we are often having to move trucks often once a week only, one direction only to feed these soldiers, right? And as you know, these numbers can only go up. If we are able to park a 50 shipping containers one time in these locations, we can actually produce much of the vegetable or highly perishable vegetables right at the location throughout the entire time without need for transportation. So different technologies have different specific use cases. This is insides of one of our vertical farms. So this is a 500 square feet space that has the capability to produce 2000 kgs of fresh vegetables. So you can pretty much, if I look at these vegetables, right? If you go to your local supermarket and look for your lettuce or kale, you're actually paying about 100 rupees per 100 grams. What does that mean? You as a consumer are paying 1000 rupees per kilo. This particular 500 square feet space has the potential to generate 2000 kgs per month. That means if you translate that to that price, it is 20 lakh revenue that is technically possible in a 500 square feet space. So this is just to let you know that in a small area that is equal to 2 car parks in an apartment building, you could actually set up a nano farm and you can actually produce or generate a revenue which is close to even 20 lakhs. But having said that, business is not so simple, right? So I want to also highlight that. So production is possible. You need to know how to sell as well. The last part of this session is how do we capture the data and how do we deal with IoT? So broadly, there are 4 areas that you can look at. So you can look at the weather station, which is the outside environment, right? We know the wind speed, wind direction, humidity, temperature, light. Based on this, we understand the macro climate. Then you have the sensor that goes inside the greenhouse or inside the grow room, where you control the microclimate or you assess the microclimate. Then you have the irrigation fertigation system, which is what you use to water the plants and dose the plants with the nutrients. And you have subsystem monitoring, right? Whether the greenhouse mechanization or the grow system or grow tower mechanization that happen using these electronic components. These are just some of the things that you measure on a day-to-day basis in a high-tech farm, right? So you look at temperature, pressure, PAR. PAR is basically photosynthetic active radiation, which is how you measure the light that the plant receives. Because we humans use lux, plants, we need to use PAR to measure the amount of light the plant takes. And we have all of these measurements, which are done by a computer, of course. It's not that the farmer is sitting and calculating all of this. The sensors go to a platform. The platform computes all of this and tells the farmer that something is wrong or you need to do this or you need to do that. The data that a farmer sees at the end of the day, after all computation, looks like this. right? He has some graphs and some circles with numbers. So the circle with number, if it's green in color, all is well. In the circle that shows red, something is off, and he needs to pay a little attention to this. This is a very broad, and he can see how many things are switching on, switching off, and those kind of basic decisions. And those decisions can actually convert to actions. So they say a picture speaks 1,000 words. So I'm going to end today's session by just showing some of the work, that we've done across India. This is an NFT farm. Of course, most of the pictures are NFT because 80% of the work that we've done across India is NFT. This is for the large burger giant growing iceberg lettuce. Yeah, I think.
Now it is back, sir.
Oh, the screen is back?
Yeah, screen is back.
Yeah, I think I'm almost done. Yeah. So, of course, this is the last slide from one of our Chennai farms done a few years back. So I guess I hope I've not overwhelmed you with too much data and information. So we can have a chat or questions. Happy to answer any of them.
Thank you, Sriram. It was an excellent session. A lot of takeaways from all of for our group here. So let's keep the floor open for the question and answers now. Participants, you may please unmute and ask your questions now.
Hello, good morning, sir. Hello. Can you hear me?
Hello.
Yeah, please go on. Yeah, please go on, Mr. Satyamurthy. Dr. Satyamurthy.
Yeah. Actually, the presentation went well, and I got a good information around that. But my question is, as you said, 60% of India have the open system, right? Open agriculture system, and you are bringing the hydroponic and vertical farming to the Indian culture.
Right.
How this could reflect on the farmers' economy?
Yeah. So these are technologies, right? So we have to upskill the farmers and we have to deploy them. So, and as I was saying, 60% of our population are going to be moving into peri-urban and urban areas. Who are these people who are moving to these urban areas? They are probably sons of farmers or farmers themselves, right? So is there a way to re-engage these farmers within peri-urban and urban areas is one avenue of opportunity, right? If you are able to upskill them, instead of them upskilling them to go to a factory or become a security guard, if we actually take their core competence, upgrade the core competence and move them into mainstream food production within cities, it's a great opportunity of repurposing existing farmers into better, more efficient technologies. And then in terms of large scale production, I think we can, again, see, not everything can be grown in these systems. These are mainly meant for horticulture where per plant efficiency matters. If you still look at cereals and all the commodities and pulses, you still need the large scale open field irrigation. If you look for large scale fruits and plantations, you still need open field irrigation. So we have a lot of gaps to address, and the current farmers and the current ecosystem itself is not enough to address them. So I think there is an activity or an opportunity for everybody in this system, and increasingly more towards tech-enabled systems.
And the one more question is, the outlet of the hydroponic waters, does it cause the contamination to the natural water body, or how could it be solved?
So basically, we use water-soluble nutrients in the water, and it is a cost to the farmer. So the farmer, in most cases, will not want to let this water go out. So what we do is we do upcycling and recycling of this, right? So the farmer will have a substrate system. The farmer will have a recirculating system. In most cases, the farmer will use this water first for the high value crops in the recirculating system. Then he will use the recaptured water, reprocess it, and use it for the mid value or low value crops in the substrate system. And only after that, because in the substrate, mostly it will go to drain to waste, but the drain to waste also does not go into a runoff. It actually goes as drip to the components. So he adds more fertilizer. So in most cases, there is very, very minimal runoff because it is an economic factor for the farmer.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah, Prashant, you can go. Prashant.
Yes, morning, sir. I have a question. I have two questions basically, sir. One is there any subsidies for from the center or state government for setting up a hydroponics farm? Okay. And second question is, can we grow millets and rice in the hydroponic system?
Yes, sir. So I'll answer the first one. Yes, there are different programs that are run by the government to facilitate hydroponic production. So you have two programs, right? One from the National Horticulture, NHB and NHM, National Horticulture Board, and one is National Horticulture Mission. The difference between the two is one is a central government run scheme and the other one is a state government run scheme. The exact subsidies and will vary depending on whether a hilly region or you're in urban area and those kind of parameters. And state governments have their own policies to facilitate. Range anywhere between 50% to 75%.
Okay. And can we grow millets and rice?
Yeah. So see, hydroponics is only a technology. So it can grow anything, right? So just to give you an example, so 2 months back for a research project, we managed to grow Kashmiri saffron inside a shipping container in Chennai. So the technology itself does not have a barrier. The barrier will come in business viability. Whether the cost of production justifies the sale of that product. So for example, commonly we grow rice and certain types of millets in hydroponics for seed breeding. For those kind of activities, we do that because there the cost of production justifies the end product. Because you need a pathogen-free, without any cross-contamination, you need to grow a certain variety or a breed. And now with lights introduced in seed breeding, we call it speed breeding. So you're able to, get multiple generations done much earlier than your conventional growing. So these are the avenues where we are currently using. But I do see a future where in certain parts of the world, they probably will have a skyscraper which is as big as a football field, which will be growing rice for 100 floors. It is theoretically possible, maybe in the future, like projects like NEOM in Saudi Arabia. It is very much possible that they can adopt technologies like this.
Mm-hmm. So currently, as for you, it is not viable to grow millets and rice in the current system, right? Because the economics will not match.
So I don't know. I don't have a specific answer. I'm guessing it's not viable.
Okay.
We need to evaluate, right? If it's basmati, how much, so it requires some kind of a technical evaluation.
Okay. I understand. Thank you, sir.
And Vijayanand.
Vijayanand,
please go on, Vijayanand.
Okay. Yeah, hello, sir. Sir, I have a question. See, I've been looking into this field for some time now, and I observe that this is more suitable for the high value crops of leafy vegetables like lettuce and all. But I don't see a big market. I may be wrong, but still I don't believe that we have a big market for these kind of high value crops in Chennai or Tamil Nadu. Maybe in a city like Bangalore, Pune, Mumbai, Delhi, it makes sense. But what is your take on that? Like, how much do you think like a lettuce or a kale market we have in south of, mainly in Tamil Nadu?
Yeah, Vijay, I'll break your question into few parts, right? Yeah, most farmers prefer growing high value crops, right? But it's not necessary that high value is the only option. It is because they want a quick return on investment. If they grow a high value crop, they anticipate that they'll get an ROI in 2 years or 3 years. Whereas nothing stops us from growing all our local arakira, sirikira, your mint pudina and your methi in these systems, except the payback period can be slightly longer, north of 5 years, right? So the farmer is not patient in most cases, and they don't want to go into mass market mainstream products. Because it's a USP for them, they want to rush into the high value crops, which is, logically you can agree with their point of view as well. But coming back to the second question, any crop, right? Like today, everyone is familiar with broccoli and capsicum. But if you go 20, 30 years back, they were also in the same position, right? If you look at the cities in a futuristic way, 10 years from now, broccoli, avocados and all become like a very common, regular staple for us, right? Maybe lettuce also will follow. Today, there is a little bit of overproduction and lesser demand, or I will just say distributed demand. It is not like a staple that you can go put in the mandi or supermarket where it will just fly off the shelf. There is some kind of resistance because most people may even eat a salad, but they don't know how to make a salad. So all this transition will happen. But parallelly, I think the technology and the farming also will correct itself. I see a lot more people trying to have more patient ROI expectations, and they're moving into more mainstream crops. I don't know if I addressed all your question, Vijay.
No, I think that makes sense. Like that is exactly what even I also feel. But
Hello.
Yeah, please go on.
Hello. I am
Yes,
Mr. Kaja Nazimuddin, Deputy Director of Agriculture, retired Government of Tamil Nadu.
Pleasure to meet you, sir.
After putting 35 service in agriculture extension, I put simple question to you. First, have you any technology to improve the soil fertility management because of overuse of pesticide, fertilizer, and weedicide? The soil fertility is down. So there is an urgent need to upgrade the soil to come to the condition for successful agriculture. Second question. Every house has a garden in front and back of the house. Probably, there is a chance also to shut the door during my visit to Chennai and other places continuously for 2 or 3 months. At that time, the plants in the garden starved of water. What is the technology you are having for that period to feed the water under drip system? So you must tell your technology. Thank you very much. Very kind of you. I take this opportunity to extend my thanks for participating in this session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Kaja, sir. So lovely speaking to you. I'll just answer your first question. So yes, there is a depletion of soil quality continuously, and a part of the understanding is that they are depleting rapidly because of rampant use of fertilizer and rampant use of certain other chemicals that people use. But we have to look at this slightly more
Pesticide and weedicide.
Pesticide, fungicide, and weedicide, absolutely, sir. But we have to look at it little more holistically, right? Like the soil that the farmers need, the topsoil, they say it takes around 2,000 years to get generated. The composite components, the bioorganics that go into it, because most people think of soil as a living organism or a biology. But what we must also realize is the job of these living organisms or the biological layer is to break down complex salts into simple salts so that they are bioavailable for plants. So from that point of view, if the soil does not have the complex salts in the first place, There is no point in having a bioorganism because it is breaking down nothing to nothing, right? It is not breaking down the salt to a bioavailable form. So in earlier days, and I'm going to give a slightly longer answer. In earlier days, and it's a fascinating story, right? It's good for everybody to know. We used to have the rivers and the river banks. The rivers will flood, the water will come to the land banks, a lot of fish will die there, ammonia again will get created, the ammonia will become nitrogen, grass will grow, and then the deer and the rabbits and all of them will come and feed on the grass. Then the lions and tigers and the wolves will come and attack these. So there'll be blood, bone, everything shattered on that soil. Then the scavengers will come from interior mainland and feed on this and their excreta. So the composition of soil itself is very complex, right? In those days, this happened year on year because the next flooding will come, wash all this back into the water and distribute across the river banks. So this is what we call as a typical nitrogen cycle. The day man started farming in an organized manner, we started fencing and putting boundaries and restricting a lot of this outside. There itself, the nitrogen cycle was broken. So now whatever is there is the remains of what we preserved, and it is only natural for it to keep depleting year on year. Now with all of this realization, people have started talking about carbon farming, no-till farming, and all of these methods. So they believe that even though they cannot add the mineral salts or anything back to the soil, what they could do is they could start regenerating or reusing some of the components of the plant waste itself. And so they start creating mulches, they start banning tilling of soil and all of these practices so that the carbon composition of the soil becomes enriched. And thereby they are able to, sustain a better yield or agriculture with minimal use of pesticide and fertilizer. So I think a lot of work in this area is being done, but just by eliminating, your nutrients or this, we may not be able to regenerate the soil is what my humble point is. The second part of your question, right? I actually have a garden right behind me and I've not seen it for almost, 2 months. So there are very simple systems available today, which you can connect to your overhead water tank. And then you put a minimal drip system to all your plants. And they run on either a timer or a scheduled program, and they will automatically irrigate. And you have some additions to that unit, which you can, add these bottles to it, which actually store some sort of water-soluble fertilizer as well. So you don't even have to fertigate your plants. You just have to input in the system what kind of crops you're growing, and automatically it will time it. So broader answer, yes, it is quite possible and available today for you to control your garden even in your absence.
Yeah, Sriram Gopal, please go on. Dinesh, Sriram Gopal.
Hi, I just have a question.
May I complete my question, please?
Yeah, go on.
Is it possible to go for certified organic production under this technology?
Very good question, sir. So currently, India doesn't have a policy on hydroponics. They are still trying to frame one.
Sir, sorry for interruption. I intend to use the drip system in the hospital. Drips. Can we use this for feeding the plant?
Why not?
Why not?
Drip system.
Please tell me.
It is a drip system. You're talking about the ones for saline, right?
Yes. Saline.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, the same purpose, right? It's dripping, except the ones designed for your agriculture use would be more tuned to that application, because you are going to be also giving fertilizer. So if it's, high EC, it will be resistant to clogs, or it will be better resistant to clogs.
No, sir. Only for water.
No difference, sir. We can use anything. Whichever is cheaper, we can use. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Sorry, what was the other question? I think someone else asked.
Yeah, Kandasamy, please go on.
Yeah, sir, I wanted to know whether certified organic production is possible under hydroponics. That's the question I raised. You commenced your answer already now.
Yeah. I think I gave you the part answer. So in the US, a large portion of hydroponics has already come under USDA approved organic. Whereas in India, we still don't have a policy and we don't know, how the government will formulate it. But my broader answer to this is, see, in the West, especially in Europe, they classify products as hydroponically grown or beyond organic. That's the tag that they've created. They're not trying to make an organic certification on this, right? Because they believe that hydroponically grown, mitigates three major toxicities in food. The first one is heavy metal toxicity. The second one is pesticide toxicity. And the last one is biotoxicity. Now, even organic is prone to biotoxicity. You could get Listerin, Salmonella, and all of these, right? And most of these biotoxicity can come from animal waste. It can be from a dog or cow or whatever that is, right? So even sometimes organic can be harmful to people as well. It is the way we perceive this, right? So different parts of the world look at it differently. In India, clearly, we don't have a policy, and there is also not a premium. The awareness is not so much that people are willing to pay a premium for these kind of technologies. A tomato grown in hydroponic mostly sells at the same place. Very few, last mile customers pay extra dollars for a hydroponically grown produce as of now.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, Dinesh, please go on.
Yeah, I would just like to know whether we can use the exterior environment and mix with the technologies you have. For example, when it comes to our area in Coimbatore, we can pretty much grow anything except carrot and the lettuce and few others. For example, we can grow onions, big onion, small onion, and cauliflower or broccoli, whatever. And also some of the dry crops like millets. So I would just like to know whether is it possible for us to use the advantage of using the less water, but also at the same time use the environmental advantage that a particular area has. That is one question. And the other thing is, it's not a question, but I think it's an opinion that I have. For example, a farmer who tries to grow a better food, for example, organic farmer or natural farmer, should not get a premium on the product, but the premium should come in a way that the cost of production is lower. So I'm just trying to hit a point where as a farmer myself, if I have to prepare the land, it will cost like around 20 to 30,000 per acre. It would be okay if it is little over that. Like for example, if I can grow a crop in your systems, for example, the investment of about 1 lakh for an acre worth of a crop, I think it is good to go for me.
Yeah, so I think I'll start off with your first question, Mr. Dinesh. See, I'm a strong advocate in, so like people think high-tech farming is like some magic show, right? Like, but even I was telling you, like we tried to grow saffron in Chennai, or, growing strawberry in Chennai and all. So these are gimmicks. What we need to understand is, it's all about basic economics, right? If you're growing a certain plant in your location at a certain cost, if I can either improve the yield or reduce your cost, those are the two fundamentals in any kind of business, right? So I have to increase your sale or I have to decrease your cost. So if I'm using a technology, the sum total output of the technology should either do one of this, right? Either my overall yield, either my speed of production or the yield of production or the cost of production. These are the three areas I need to impact. And this is the fundamentals that we need to approach any technology with. So whether it's hydroponics or high tech or whatever. So it is totally, I'm a strong advocate in trying to grow what you grow in your location better than trying to get something from somewhere and trying to make that into a unit. I'm not against it, but I'm not for it as well, right? It's all about building efficiencies. The second part, right, which was your opinion or observation, I think I'm not sure, if I understood what you said correctly. But I think that we all should, collectively try and use technology in the right manner. So we have to use it responsibly, is what I feel.
Okay. So more simple, I mean, to put it in simple terms, my question was, it has to be, the entry should be cheaper or little over the cost that we are incurring now these days. Like, for example, to grow an acre worth of tomato, if I had to invest like 2 lakhs in the traditional systems and the systems that you have been explaining all these an hour, if it is like little over that, it is okay. But if it is like multifold, I think that would be a hindrance for the technologies like that too. I mean, such as yours to
Vijay, I completely agree with you.
And two.
Sorry, no, before I forget, right?
Okay.
I completely agree with your point. It's just that, see, in an ideal world, we all want this, right? Obviously, we want this, but in the real world, and also I want you to understand this difference, right? The best example I can give is between handicraft and factories. Handicraft is like labor intensive, it's craftsmanship oriented, it is very modular, right? Similarly, open field farming is like handicraft, right? When you're building a factory, the capex investment will be much higher, but the life of the project will be much longer. See, for the next 10 years, you're not going to be incurring the same cost. So your OPEX goes down, your efficiency goes up, but your capex. Did it make sense, Vijay?
No, this question was from Dinesh.
Yeah, I got it.
Okay.
Yeah, there's the next question from Mr. Anbadagan, Singapore. Anbu sir, from Singapore, you can ask a question, sir. Okay, we'll not wait. Okay, Vijay, you may please unmute and ask a question, Vijay.
Yeah, hope I'm audible.
Yes.
So my question is like, do we have any proper trainings? Because I see like this technology has been like with few leaders who've been in this industry for some time, but it's not like widely available for everyone. So if somebody wants to really learn this technology, like, do we have any platform? I've seen some of the growers in Gujarat are doing this. Like, they had been continuously doing trainings and they're charging for some 1 day, 2 day workshops and all. Do we have anything like that in and around maybe Tamil Nadu or Chennai? So that is one thing.
Yeah.
And the other one is like regarding this long term of the investments, right? Like I've been visiting some of the polyhouses, polyhouse farmers, and what they have been saying is like after 3 years or 4 years time, their polyhouse is not as efficient as before because of they have to change the sheets, and for some reason it is not the same as it used to be in the first 1 or 2 years. As yield, they're not getting the same yield after 4 years. So any particular reasons for that, and what is your observations on that? Like on a long term, what would be the maintenance involved in this particular technology?
I'll answer the second one first. You may have to repeat the first question, but it's very simple, right? It's also a cultural thing. When we get something brand new, we are very proper at following standard operating procedures. As the day goes by, our casualness or the negligence starts creeping in, right? And this is very common to especially, people from our area. Okay, we do not have the, attention to detail or the continuous importance to SOPs like what you see in Southeast Asia or, in other parts of the world, right? We start getting a little bit complacent. And the best example I can give you is especially in aquaculture. All this shrimp breeding and all of them, a lot of farmers suffer after 2-3 years because they stop following protocols. So, and of course, that is one aspect of it. The other aspect, naturally, after 4 years, if you're using a poly sheet, the quality of your transparency in sunlight and all of that will deteriorate. So there is a recurring capex to advanced agriculture, right? Like your pumps may fail after 5 years, or your sheets may go bad after 4-5 years. If you maintain them properly, you extend their life. But that is why it is important to see that most of the projects, the ROI is within the recurring capex period, right? So you have to factor all this when you're going for a project. But in the West, nobody uses plastic sheets, right? They use polycarbonate. Again, polycarbonate for 10 years, you won't have deterioration in light or minimal deterioration, right? But polycarbonate increases cost significantly. So what I'm trying to say is, one, for us to gain confidence, people are using a very quick, let me see first method, right? But when you say that method, there are obviously long-term problems with that. Otherwise, the whole world would be using plastic sheets. Why are they going for glass houses and polycarbonates? So we are very capex sensitive. We go for the cheapest method possible, and it will have its side effects after 3-4 years. So you have to now take a call whether you want to upgrade to another plastic sheet, or you want to go for a structural change and go for a polycarbonate, right? Then you can prolong it to another 10-year period. But like anything which is functioning, you need to have periodic maintenance and replacements. The first question, if you just ask me, I can,
Yeah, the first question was, I was asking about this training and where I can get these kind of skill set. There's a huge gap in the skill set, or where we can acquire these skills, right?
See, there is a fundamental issue here, right? So when you look at training, the thing that factors most is, the legitimacy of it. So there are many people who can simply come and say, okay, this is the training, and give you their version of it, right? Unless we have a regulated body that accredits what training you are giving, right? Otherwise, everyone's version so there is no channelization which is currently in India. So, and see, as a company, I've been in this space for 10 years. Why I stay away from all of this is without any legitimacy, right? Whether I give a good solution or bad solution, if no one's endorsing that, if a farmer comes to my course, starts his farm and fails, and then comes back and says, because of you, I failed. It becomes a big liability for anyone. So there are people doing it, but they do it mostly as a marketing gimmick, because no one can learn controlled environment agriculture, the same course that is given in Wageningen University for 3 years, in a 2-day workshop. So that is simply a gimmick to pull people in, because they are hoping that one of those guys who come for those training sessions will end up putting a farm. So it is like a marketing show rather than actual knowledge impartment, right? Because there are multiple parts of controlled environment agriculture, and they're all deep subjects. So my thing is, the best way to address this is, I think there needs to be some government and academic body interventions here, where they need to recognize newer technologies and create some kind of legitimacy and transparency in accrediting and validating topics.
Yeah, correct. I think that is the problem. That also becomes a huge entry barrier for this particular field.
Absolutely.
Not many people are adopting, and I don't see any such curriculum or courses in any of the even the agriculture universities. Also, even they are also at a very initial stage. They are putting up 1 or 2 trial forms within their campus, and they are also trying to get that. So definitely that's a big barrier right now.
Vijay, I'll digress slightly and I'll share my view. There are 61 people here. So let me just give you a very candid view, right? I may, hurt some few sentiments, but again, as a true Indian, I think this needs to be put out in forums, right? See, when I travel to Israel, Thailand, and all the other places, what I see is there is a strong connection between research bodies, academic bodies, and industries. And usually the flow of knowledge happens like this, right? The researchers work on something, and then immediately they make it a mandate for universities to adopt those technologies, because they need mass validation. So when universities are there, children are paying to try their product, right? They're learning. So hundreds of people will test any technology or system and get thousands of data points. Then they pick the ones that are close to viable or whatever and pass it on to the industry leaders. This seems to be the transition of knowledge or any new technology in most countries outside. Unfortunately, in India, the academic body is in its own silo, mostly with the attitude that my cup is full. They will only interrogate. You don't have a PhD, don't talk to me. But how many PhDs did something that actually translated into value for the industry? Nobody knows, right? Because they have their own point systems and they're competing with each other and they never see the ground. So most of the technologies that you see that have come to India are all coming from industry and then waiting for universities to adapt and then goes to research. You know, and it is a very sad state of affairs because our resistance to change, and this has to do with our structure itself, right? A lot of people at top positions don't want change. They are actually very skeptical about everything. My point is, if you really want to change something, this attitude must change, you know, for us. We need to before forming an opinion, we have to try it. You know, whether a technology is needed or not, your opinion cannot decide that. Hard facts and data needs to decide that, right? And as academic bodies and research institutions, we're not giving enough importance to all of this. And I know I have had multiple conversations with different people, and I know the condescending tone that they give, like say, oh, you're not even from agri background. How can you do this? You know, it is not what you do that matters. It is who does it that matters here in most cases, right? And we must change it. And so I put it out in all forums saying, yeah, we need to address some structural issues in the country. We take great pride in saying it's Korean technology, Japanese technology, Israeli technology, but we don't actually, you know, invest the time and effort needed for curating and cultivating such technologies within our ecosystem.
I'm Sridhar here.
Hi, Mr. Sriram.
Yeah. We are into manufacture of these bioenzymes.
Yes, sir.
By any chance, you are using this nutrient as a bioenzyme in your products?
Currently, no, sir. There are smaller trials that we do. We try and add in a hydroponic system, especially if it's a drip system or it's a recirculating system. We are very particular about efficiency of the system, right? Normally what happens is when you add living organisms inside the system, there is a chance that they tend to coagulate or smell factor and those kind of things. So we work with multiple bioenzyme companies to validate and test their products for their compatibility with hydroponic systems. But so far on main scale, we've not used any additive that goes into the water. We have, however, suggested sprays and other foliar units to plants.
Yeah, we are supplying to some of the estates these enzymes as a pest control.
Right.
So this is basically an Acidobacter plant.
Okay.
So I thought whether you will be using it.
So far, we've not used it in any of the commercial projects, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Prasad. Prasad, please unmute.
Yeah, thank you. Sriram, was nice. See, the one thing you know is how to make this actionable for somebody who's kind of interested in investing. See, like you rightly said, there's a lot of people who are moving to urban areas, and many people would have had a family background of farming or whatever in the previous generations, but most go to urban areas now, and all their land is lying vacant. If somebody is interested in investing, and taking up, what would you suggest, or is there something that's that's already working? That kind of a
Mr. Prashant, see, I've seen thousands of people go into farm investing, and at least 60% have burnt their fingers massively. The reason I say that is it's because I think when it comes to farming alone, it is a very half calculation, more emotion, right? Because we are driven by sentiments than sometimes pure math. Like if you are an automotive component manufacturer, you go searching for the supply chain, right? Like you want to be around a car factory so you can buy your product. So we're not approaching this from the market. Most people think, oh, I have a farmland which is lying vacant. I have money. Can I add the two and make farming successful? But we have to really approach it from demand point of view, right? If there is a demand in your area for a certain thing and there is a willingness to pay from the customer side, then you have to decide, can you grow in your place and can you allocate the time and resource to actually do that, to build this, right? And the industry also is to blame for this because they need sales, right? If someone comes walking in with a cash check in their hand, they quickly tell them, yeah, this is what you want to hear. Please go take it. So one needs to spend the time researching on basic business economics, right? And if I keep advising most of the people who come to say, I want to invest in a farm, to say, start trading first. You know, if you want to get into farming, I know it's a counterintuitive thing, but if you don't know how to sell, your farm is most likely going to fail, no matter what you invest, right? Because once you go to the market, if you're going to grow mangoes, let's say, you start trading in mangoes, buy from the farmers, try to sell. If then you know what is the price the guy who's buying is willing to pay, what are the standards he wants, what are the varieties, that you understand the real world problem in handling it as a business. If it's just for passion, I want a farmhouse and grow some fruits and vegetables for myself, it's completely different. But commercially, I think we have to approach it commercially.
True, yeah. See, I think that's the challenge, right? See, most of the farmers, if you actually look at it, you know, like you rightly said, you know, the earlier, people are not making much money because of all this constraints. So the only way, obviously, is to find the right market and then, you know, also find a crop that fetches you a better price.
Correct. Correct, sir. I agree.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah. Last two questions.
வணக்கம், என் பேர் ராகுல். இப்போ நீங்க ஒரு ஸ்லைட்ல வந்துட்டு நீங்க போட்டுருந்தீங்க அமோனியா வந்து நைட்ரஜனா கன்வெர்ட் ஆகுது அப்படின்னு சொல்லியிருந்தீங்க.
ஆமா சார்.
இப்ப நாங்க எங்க ஃபார்ம்ல என்ன பண்ணிருக்கோம்னா, அதே மாதிரி நாங்க மீன் தொட்டி வச்சிருக்கோம். அதுல இருந்து வர அமோனியா வந்து டைரக்டா ஃபார்மிங்க்கு விடாம ஒரு சின்ன பாண்டு மாதிரி ரெடி பண்ணி அதுல நாங்க அந்த தேங்காய் மூடியில இருக்குல்ல அதெல்லாம் நல்லா ஃபுல்லா ஃபில் பண்ணி ஒரு அனரோபிக் டேங்க் மாதிரி ரெடி பண்ணி அந்த அமோனியா வாட்டர் அதுல விட்டு ஸோ அதுக்கப்புறம் வந்துட்டு நைட்ரேட்டா கன்வெர்ட் பண்ணி விட்டுட்டு இருக்கோம். ஸோ இது 1.5 years 18 to 20 months நாங்க அதை பண்ணிட்டு இருக்கோம். இப்போ ரீசெண்டா எங்க ஃபார்ம் ஒருத்தர் வந்துருங்க அப்படின்னு சொல்லியிருந்தாரு அப்படின்னா, இப்போ நீங்க தேங்காய் மூடி யூஸ் பண்றதுனால வந்து சல்ஃபர் ஃபார்ம் ஆகும். ஸோ அது வந்து ஒரு லாங் டைம்ல உங்களுக்கு இஷ்யூ வரலாம்னு சொல்லியிருந்தாரு. ஸோ இஸ் இட், ஐ மீன், அது உண்மையிலுமே அமோனியால இருந்து நைட்ரஜன் மாறுறப்போ சல்ஃபர் ஃபார்ம் ஆகுமா?
சார், நீங்க என்ன கேக்குறீங்க? நான் வந்து இங்க வந்து நைட்ரோஜன் அப்படின்னு நான் சொல்றேன். அந்த ப்ராசஸ் வந்து so we have to have 2 separator tanks. அதுல நம்ம ஏரியேஷன் டியூப் வச்சு அதை வந்து ஏரியேட் பண்ணணும். பிகாஸ் இட்ஸ் ஏரோபிக் ஆக்டிவிட்டி. அதுல வந்து நம்ம நிறைய இந்த பயோ ரிங்ஸோ பயோ பால்ஸோ basically a surface area expansion for the nitrobacter and nitrosomonas to colonize. இது பண்ணிட்டு in the presence of oxygen or air, with this massive colony, the ammonia is consumed and converted into nitrogen. Now, can you create this surface area expansion using coconut shells? I am not really sure whether, you know, it has a negative effect or a positive effect. Yes, it is a surface area. It is an area, but it does not have those intricate subsurfaces for you know, optimizing a colony. ஏன்னா உங்களுக்கு ஒரு surface தான் கிடைக்குது. But if you get those multi-dimensional balls, they are tried and tested. There is a cost factor to it, of course. But நம்ம அதுக்கு substitute பண்ணி தேங்காய் மூடி யூஸ் பண்றதுனால ஏதாவது நெகட்டிவ் எஃபெக்ட் இருக்கான்னு I'm not aware. But I can always, you know, see if I can get an answer for you at a later date.
Okay, இப்போ நீங்க சொன்ன மாதிரி தான் இப்போ நாங்கள் ஆக்சுவலாக ஒரு 2 டேங்கா வச்சிருக்கோம். ஒன்று வந்து அனரோபிக் டேங்கா, இன்னொரு வந்துட்டு ஏரேஷன் டேங்கா வச்சிருக்கோம். ஸோ 24 hours வந்துட்டு அந்த செகண்ட் டேங்க்ல வந்து ஏரேஷன் நடந்துட்டே இருக்கும். அனரோபிக் டேங்க்ல இருந்து ஏரேஷன் டேங்க் சப்ளை ஆகி அதுல இருந்து எங்களோட பில்லுக்கு போகிற மாதிரி இருக்கு. ஸோ எங்களுக்கு இந்த சல்ஃபர் இஷ்யூ வந்தது இல்லை. ஸோ அவங்க லாங் டேர்ம்ல வரும்னு சொன்னாங்க.
நீங்க டெஸ்ட் பண்ணலாமே.
அதான் இப்போ வரைக்கும் எங்களுக்கு வரல. ஸோ லாங் டேர்ம்ல வரலாம். மேபி இப்போ 18 months பண்ணிட்டு இருக்கீங்க நீங்க. பிளஸ் உங்க வாட்டர் வந்து ஃப்ளோ ஆகிட்டே 24 hours எங்களுக்கு ஃப்ளோலே இருக்குங்க. ஸோ அதனால கூட ஃபார்ம் ஆகாம இருக்கலாம் அப்படிங்கிற மாதிரி சொல்லியிருந்தாரு. இப்போ நாங்கள் ஒரு 6 months நீங்க சொன்ன அந்த மீடியம் யூஸ் பண்ணி பார்த்தோம். அந்த டியூப் பால் மாதிரி இருக்குல்ல, அந்த மீடியம் யூஸ் பண்ணி பார்த்தோம். நீங்க சொன்ன மாதிரி கொஞ்சம் காஸ்ட் எக்ஸ்பென்சிவா இருந்ததுனால நாங்கள் அதை எடுத்துட்டு தான் வந்துட்டு ஒரு இதுல தேங்காய் முடி வைப்போம். அதுக்கப்புறம் அந்த கானோட ஷெல் இருக்கு, அந்த கானோட வேஸ்ட் இது அது யூஸ் பண்ணி பார்த்துருக்கிறோம்.
இல்ல அந்த bio waste see it can decompose and create other issues. So sulfur வந்து waste வரலனா there should be any problem. Periodic you see signs of sulfur, then you may want to change that. Otherwise I think you should just continue.
Thank you Sriram.
Thank you.
Sendil, last question. Sendil, please unmute and ask your question, please.
Thanks, Sriram, for the wonderful session. நாங்க வந்து mushroom automation-ல இருக்கோம். We are into mushroom. உங்க experience-ல have you anything tried and mushroom cultivation control environment in hydroponics or in your area?
Yeah, they're all fairly similar, right? So mushroom ku nama humidity and certain amount of light is what we are trying to create. Enakku idla personally I've done a lot of reading and research, but as a company we've not ventured into mushroom. But yeah, I think this also fits very much into controlled environment agriculture now. And there are some really big guys globally like Smallhold and a couple of other companies that do a fairly large scale operation in gourmet mushroom production in controlled environment agriculture. But that is, again, mushroom is a great source of food for the future. I think the prominence of mushroom will only raise over the years. This is my personal opinion.
Yeah, presently we are doing control IoT based solution. And we are
where are you based out of?
Tirumallai, Chennai based. Our factory is Tirumallai Vile.
Okay.
And we got a IVP award for innovation of mushroom. இங்க இப்போ வாழ்ந்து காட்டும் திட்டத்துக்கு நாங்க பண்ணிட்டு இருக்கோம்.
Okay. Kandipa, we can connect offline, so I think there are a lot of synergy. Sure. So my company's name is Future Farms, so we can always connect offline and explore synergies.
Sure. Thanks for your time, for wonderful knowledge sharing.
Thank you.
Sorry, this is Arul. I was not able to raise my hand. Can I have a question? Can I?
Yes,
please. Last question.
Yeah. Sriram, thanks for your time and this wonderful session. More importantly, a free one. Appreciate it. So we have two questions. One is, so most in your solution, most of the nutrients are fed through water. Not most, every nutrient is fed through water.
Yes.
Organic or inorganic, either way. But is there a way that you measure it? There could be more phosphorus or potassium is not good as well. So is there a way to measure it? Are you measuring it? And if you are measuring it, how are you measuring it and correcting it if it goes above and beyond the level? The reason I'm asking is I am also providing an IoT-based solution. I'm based at Coimbatore, back from US, but I have started a company. I'm providing it. So I would like to know and connect with you later on this. And the second question is, I also wanted to be an aquaponics farmer. But as you mentioned, I cannot become an aquaponics farmer by attending a week of session or 2 week session. Right? So for me, what kind of help can you or your company provide? And if can, how do we touch base?
Yeah, so I'll try and answer of course, I think we can certainly connect offline. My company is Future Farms. Again, I mentioned that. I would love to chat and explore synergies. To answer the first part of the question, we measure a lot of parameters of the water, right from flow rate, dissolved oxygen, EC, pH, and in some cases, the complete nutrient analysis as well. So both the runoff and the input. So we have, in larger farms, even a small laboratory setup where we continuously monitor and record all this information. So to answer the second part, aquaponics, I wouldn't recommend much for India at the moment, because I think mostly the kind of fish that you can grow is sea bass and tilapia. And because they are the ones who are less cannibalistic and you can grow in high density production. But unfortunately, if you look at the market rate for these fish, they're not very promising. So when you do all of this, so I always tell aquaculturists that maybe you should grow vegetables, right? because that's like a waste reduction or skimming process for them on the side. But I always recommend agriculturists not to grow fish because it's a completely different animal. See, another issue that I have with aquaponics, at least from an Indian context, is even the best, the fish feed manufacturer, they're using some kind of antibiotics or something else for the fish health enhancement. And there is always this underlying fear that, maybe there could be some crossover of some of these things into, I'll just share one very quick anecdotal evidence of fish itself, right? All these tilapia and all of these fish breeding, I attended like a month-long PhD course. I was the only non-PhD in that, right? Because of my nature of work, they allowed me inside. In that, it was tilapia breeding program. So when a fish is born, the first 21 days, the fish does not have a sex. So what they do is they actually, their intent is to produce all male tilapia because the biomass is much higher in male fish than in female. So what they do is they drop a hormone, which is a estrogen suppressant. So when they put this hormone into the fish tank where all the fries are there, the fry feeds on them and it destroys their estrogen. And then it's a race between the testosterone and estrogen for the first 21 days to determine sex. So because estrogen is destroyed, testosterone wins and you get a 99.5 all-male production. So this was greatly showcased, scientifically done. So I asked the heads of that institution saying, yeah, but aren't we inducing a hormone which could go into the food chain and people could eat and they could have impacts of the estrogen suppressant? He said, boss, any big, whatever hormone we do, the effect of it will not last more than 6 to 8 months. And tilapia is a 1 year long fish, right? You grow it for a whole year before you harvest. So there is no problem at all. But by the end of that course, they took us, this was in Vijayawada, and RGCA was the Rajiv Gandhi Center for Aquaculture was the body. So they took us on a road show to go show how all the fish that is grown in the area is sold in the market. And when I went to the market, I saw that the fish was only 450 grams, whereas the intended weight to cull was about 900 grams to 1 kg. So I asked the person at the fish stall saying, why did you harvest this much early? So he said the food conversion ratio was much higher and the fish, people mistake it to pearl spot also and buy it. So the market reality is these things are getting killed at 5 months, 6 month period, even within the restricted time. So with all this in mind, I made up my mind I won't get into aquaponics because knowingly we don't want to cause any harm to anybody, especially when these are the market practice. Simple, right? One, the transparency and the safety of food. And the second one is the willingness to pay. That tilapia is sold 80 rupees per kg, whereas RGCA said that it will be sold at 180 rupees per kg. So either ways, we're not seeing money, nor are we doing good. That's at least my observation, which is 7 years old now.
Yeah, Raghu, please go on, Raghu. Last question. I'm sorry,
okay.
Putting you back.
Yeah. Thank you so much. There could be some minute in the background. No, thanks for thank Mr. Gopi for inviting me. See, I really found the session very interesting. One quick point is, I think Sriram might have covered it. There's something called structured water, which actually structured water filter, which Japanese seem to use it a lot. Because what happens is the water has got a cluster size. And the structured filter is able to reduce the cluster size from roughly about 24, molecules per cluster to 4 or 5 molecules per cluster. Due to that, they are able to efficiently pass through the capillary tube like it goes to blood inside the body, and it's able to, in that process, the yield as well as the size of the produce are much higher. So I thought I'll just share this information. Sriram might already know it. Yeah, thank you. That's it.
Yeah, Mr. Raghu, I am aware of this tech. In fact, we did some evaluation study for a couple of players, who bought these cylindrical units with some crystals inside for the destructuring of water. So far, our study did not show any significant change in, the output. Maybe the period was too small, or In fact, one of the adverse effects we had was because we use automation in the running, every time the pump goes on and off, these crystal balls collide with each other. And I think a couple of them might have got damaged also. But in terms of actual output, we could not get a significant breakthrough or output from that. Maybe it's a particular brand or whatever, but we are still open to evaluating, new technologies where we can create more efficiencies.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Gopal.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Sriram.